Hello everyone, this is Umair Qureshi from Pakistan ASCD with my wonderful co-host and wonderful colleague and friend Tammy with us, and today we are again with another fantastic show. We're really excited to have a great educationist with us and a wonderful person who has really inspired us a lot. Tammy, hi, and who is with us?
Hi, Umair. How are you?
Cool, I'm good.
Well,
Tell us who is with us.
you're a little bit sick today, but anyway, you're here. I'm excited that we have Allison Rodman with us today. Hi, Allie. How are you?
I'm great. How's everyone doing?
Good. I'm glad that we got our glitches out of the way. So we're going to dive right in, and I'm going to introduce you. So Ed Talk Live is a collaborative project of our Emerging Leader affiliate and Pakistan affiliate, just for our viewers who don't know. And so we come together as much as we can on Sundays to have awesome people in the field on the show. So today we've got Allison Rodman, who is an ASCD author and faculty member. She provides professional learning services to help schools and districts find on-site virtual and blended model consulting solutions to help build and sustain local capacity in their teams. And so Allison is also the founder of the Learning Loop, which if you've been on Twitter, you may have seen her there, which is an educational consulting organization that provides the professional learning services to schools, districts, and nonprofits. Ali used to be an assistant principal and director of professional development for Mariana Bracetti Academy Charter School in Philadelphia. So again, a very established educator. Welcome to the show, Allison. Thanks for being with us this week.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you all.
So one of the questions that we always ask our guests is, because it's usually someone from our ASCD family. So I wanted you to let our viewers know who might not know much about ASCD, because that's how we know each other. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey with ASCD and how you kind of have gotten to the place you are right now?
Absolutely. So ASCD was a huge support of mine from a resource perspective initially. So as I'm sure many of the viewers have experienced, half the books on my bookshelf were from ASCD when I looked around, and I was like, I've got to learn more about this organization. So early in my education career, I became an ASCD member. And then a few years later, started going to conferences and was really impressed with the level of the facilitators and the resources that I was getting, and started doing a little bit of poking around to see how I could become more involved in the organization. And from there, I found out about the Emerging Leaders program. I applied, I guess it was 2012, and was rejected. And it was a good experience because it really helped me to grow as an educator. So I actually reached out to ASCD and I said, hey, this is something I'm really interested in. I want to connect with this group of individuals. Can you give me some feedback? And they gave me some fantastic feedback about some of the different things that I could become involved in more locally and at the state region. And then I applied again in 2013 and was accepted. And had this amazing opportunity to network with individuals, not just at the state level through Pennsylvania ASCD, but also internationally. And I stayed connected with those individuals throughout the past, 10 years or so, to be able to, it's not quite 10, but it feels like I've known you all. We're almost there, and feels like I've known you all in so many different capacities. So I've had an opportunity now to work with fellow emerging leaders to co-author pieces for Ed Leadership. I had many of their voices included in my recent book that was published in May with ASCD, and I work with many of them now as partners. So tomorrow evening, I'm flying out to San Antonio to partner with another emerging leader at her school. So it's been a fantastic experience, not just to push myself personally and professionally, but also to grow the network of educators with whom I'm able to collaborate.
Yeah, that's awesome. And recently you just did some work with Lori and Amy, correct, in Baltimore?
Correct. So I was with Lori a couple of weeks ago, and then I am heading back to work with them the beginning of October.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to having her on the show soon. I've got to schedule her.
Awesome.
So in the work that you do, it revolves at this point in your career around supporting teachers in their development. So where did this passion stem from? Because obviously, like, this is your career now, so there had to have been a starting point. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So when I was a teacher at Mariana Bracetti Academy, I was just feeling like I wasn't getting the professional learning that I needed, either in the school or even, as I extended my network outside of the school. And one of the things that I was finding is that in all of these different spaces, we were just designing professional learning really bad, to be honest, where it was one size fits all, sit and get PD sessions. They were offered at very strategic points during the year, but there wasn't this ongoing, learning loop or continuum of development that was happening where there was organic growth among a teaching community in a meaningful and sustained way. And I just kept saying, we've got to find a way to do this better. So it started locally, where, we started messing with some different flexible professional learning models. And then from there, I started doing more and more research into adult learning, and even into some business management with chief learning officers and individuals of that nature, to better understand how do we cater, not just to student learners, because that's certainly a field and one that's been well researched and I think well applied in some cases, but tend more carefully to the adult learners and think very strategically and intentionally about how we're designing learning for them.
Awesome. Before you go on, Umair, of course, I'm thinking of another question, listening and thinking. So when you kind of branched into sort of helping redesign the professional learning in your school, did you get any kind of like grumpiness or pushback or anything like that? Or was it just like, yeah, let's do this?
Well, with any change, it's never easy. So of course, when we ask individuals to change at all levels of the system, there's some type of loss that comes with that. And I think that's a part of, educational development that we forget about at times, that essentially when we're asking individuals to try something new, we're also in many cases asking them to give up something old. And we don't always allow the time for the grief and loss processes that come with that. So certainly there was, a little bit of uneasiness, if you will, about shifting to something new. There were lots of questions. So part of what I do in my work with school and district leaders now is to, one, allow for that time for the transition to happen. So in some cases, the strategic planning that I'm doing with a few districts now is for a model that they may not launch until 2021, 2022, right? So we're thinking ahead in that way to prepare for that type of transition. But second, the most important part that I have found is that as a leader engaged in doing this type of work, you need to model the change yourself. So if you're asking teachers to commit to a certain type of learning, whether it be hours or something new, then you need to be ready to make that same type of commitment. So to be able to sit shoulder to shoulder and engage in those sessions, to be able to kind of put yourself out on a ledge and try something that you're uncomfortable with, if you want the change to go smoothly, you've got to be the model learner yourself.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense.
So Ali, obviously I follow you religiously and your work and whatever you are sharing, and it's wonderful. It's really inspiring. My question is, why is this work with teachers, a personalized professional learning journey, so important for teachers?
So one of the things is that, every day we ask teachers in the classroom to differentiate for their students, to build relationships with them, to get to know them on a personal level, and make the learning relevant and meaningful. But then we turn around and we just don't do the same for our teachers. And quite honestly, I don't think it's fair. Just because they're at a different, point in their learning process doesn't mean that we can suddenly just give them, this training that everybody gets and, in the same space. I think we owe it to them and quite honestly to the principals that lead our schools as well, that if we're going to expect them to have this level of personalization for their students, then that's something that we need to take on as a system and be willing to commit to as well.
So what kind of challenges do you run into this in this work?
So I would say that there are three key challenges that consistently emerge. One is time. In many cases, principals and district leaders are planning professional learning sessions, a couple weeks or a couple months in advance. And while that can certainly work, and it's not an excuse not to personalize, the best designed sessions take more forethought than that, in the same way that the best designed, lessons with our students, we shouldn't be planning the night before or even the week before in some cases. If we're really good designers, we're allowing ample time for that. And that's a challenge because it's something that we don't always have in the field. So being able to carve out that time as an instructional leader, but also as a learning leader, to make that happen. The second revolves around resources. So the resources can come in a variety of different formats, but sometimes it's finding the right people and the right stuff in order to plug into all of the different needs that a school or district may have. And that's part of the work that I do, is to help not just with the planning pieces, but to either connect leaders with great people that I know in the field that excel in those areas that can help build capacity internally, or helping them with some of the design themselves, because I love to build that internal sustainability and capacity. So sometimes that means, bringing me on as a designer who can then help teacher leaders within those spaces facilitate the professional learning themselves. Because ultimately, if we're doing this work well, we're doing it where the school or district can carry on without external support. And then finally, the third challenge that I often run into is around logistics. And those logistics can come in the format of, finding the money to do some of these pieces, working around different contract situations with teachers, and making those pieces fit in flexible, creative, and solution-oriented ways, or just finding the logistics of where these different pieces fit inside or outside of the school day. So, is there a time that we can adjust the schedule here or there to make sure that every teacher is getting what they need?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So I know some of these pieces are in your book, which I'm going to talk a little more specifically about. So the book that just came out in May, Personalized Professional Learning, A Job-Embedded Pathway for Elevating Teacher Voice. I'm glad you have it because it's on my coffee table and I didn't grab it. Awesome. So, it's full of just many practical ideas, but also, some background in it to help people feel comfortable. Can you give some of our viewers a few tips for beginning the work kind of like you had to do? So, and some people obviously aren't going to be as comfortable as you were, but they might see the same need. So how might someone approach their administration?
Absolutely. So one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give is start small. I think the inclination is to, do a needs assessment of teachers, and you might get back 20 or 30 topics, and you feel like, okay, if I'm going to get buy-in, I've got to offer all 20 or 30 of these. And as a result, you end up running ragged, and the actual sessions themselves are not of high quality then, which leads to disinvestment longer term. So the first point that I try and coach is to really be comfortable with offering 3 or 5 or 6, but not getting, too ambitious about the number of sessions initially, because offering choice is just one part of the personalization puzzle. The other parts come in the session design and facilitation itself. And I get into some of that a little bit in the later chapters. And I'm actually working on some follow-up pieces now related to that, because I think that's the biggest follow-up question that I've gotten from leaders in the field is, how do we do the design and facilitation pieces better? So the first tip that I would give is really start small. And then the second tip would be not to overlook the spaces in between your sessions. So whether your sessions end up being asynchronous and online, or synchronous and face-to-face, and all of the different variations of that in between, one of the spaces, if you will, that we overlook many times is that in-between time, when teachers can continue to implement and mess up and, process and collaborate with peers. But we owe it to them, if we're doing this well, to have some tools for those things to happen. And I think too often in professional learning, we focus on the sessions or the meeting points themselves, and we overlook that time when learning could continue in between.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
So, listen, you offer a number of ways to engage in how to get the most out of the book. Can you share some of the things you have developed?
Yes, absolutely. So I would encourage individuals who are overwhelmed and just don't know where to start, jump to the appendices. It's tons of great tools, and it feels really bad as an author to say like, hey, skip all the chapters. But I myself am a visual learner and a tools person, and that was one thing I wanted to make sure was really, really rich within the book. We're planning tools to help you through. So if you're like, okay, I've just got to get going, I've got to start somewhere, jump to the appendix, see which parts resonate with you, and then maybe go to that chapter as a starting point. The other thing is that I wanted to ensure that for leaders who were ready to kind of take the next step and go further, that there were some resources embedded there very clearly for them as well. So throughout the book, you will see these little seeds for growth embedded within the margins. And if you're reading the text and you feel like, okay, that's great, but we kind of already do some of those things, then check out some of the resources in the Seeds for Growth, because that was an area where I was able to kind of highlight some tools that were really helpful for me along my journey and through the book's development, as well as tools from a number of colleagues in my network that I rely on when I engage in these processes myself.
I wanted to ask you too, because I've participated in your Twitter chat. Can you just remind us when that is? And I'll post it on the Facebook page as well, because I know that sometimes I remember and then I'm like, oh, I have to go back and read it. But yeah, tell us about the Twitter chat as well, and the book club that you had as well. I'm sorry, I don't remember if it's still going or not.
That's okay.
I know
there's so much going on. My calendar just like explodes with color. So I host a monthly Twitter chat on the first of every month from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock Eastern time. The hashtag is PPL1 chat. So personalized professional learning 1 chat, essentially. And the reason I do it on the first of the month was that I wanted to ensure that individuals were putting themselves first in their learning. And I think sometimes we spend so much time planning for our students that we forget to take even that 1 hour of time for ourselves. So on the first of each month, I really, try and challenge educators. Put yourself first. Take this time to kind of connect with colleagues, maybe get some new ideas. So the topics tend to focus around personalized professional learning and ways that you can either design or start or stretch some of that work. But we will be looking specifically on October 1st at the whole educator. So what are some of the ways through professional learning we can cultivate and sustain ourselves as whole educators? So I'm excited about that. There is a book club live on Flipgrid. I think the timing was a little bit challenging for folks at the beginning of the school year. So not too many individuals had an opportunity to dive in. But again, if you're looking for a space to kind of guide you through the book and be able to collaborate with other individuals, there are a number of questions and responses to kind of prompt your own thinking as you go. So you can access the book club through my Facebook page. So if you just search Facebook for The Learning Loop, there's a group right there for the Facebook page, and that will get you right in there.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll put the link on our Facebook page as well.
Great.
And Umair, do you want to?
I have one question. Actually, today my thinking process is pretty slow because I'm sick. But anyway, I have one question. Listen, when we look at different models, like you are familiar with carrots and stick. So when we go for the personalized professional learning, which model best supports this idea? The one which have a collaborative approach, or the one which have more bureaucratic approach? Like there are many schools in the different parts of the world which actually try to control learning, and there are some who are actually up to facilitate learning. So when we talk about these ideas like personalized professional learning obviously teachers do need support from their internal systems as well. So how do you look at the system, like they're embedding, how they are embedded together? Which one is the better approach? All carrots, all sticks, or a mixture of carrots and sticks, both? I just want your opinion on that.
Absolutely, Umair. And I would say there definitely needs to be a mix, and I'll kind of walk through, some of the balance points here. So one of the things that I have found in my own design is that if I leave things too open-ended, teachers feel lost. And, it sounds kind of silly because you're trying your hardest to personalize and to say, hey, just own it, take it wherever you want to go. And that becomes challenging for some teachers who have been so used to a scripted, very structured model in many cases, not just in professional learning, but in curriculum design and in some of our other, education elements. So in the moments when I have left things completely open-ended and just say, hey, run with it, I honestly have not seen the results that I was hoping to see. So instead, I have found myself kind of balancing somewhere in the middle where I provide a number of options and then still always offer an open-ended option at the end. So to say, consider A, B, C, and D. But if none of these work for you, come talk to me as a facilitator and we will find one together that does. Because I never want teachers to be in a place where they're having to choose from these different options. And at the end of the day, none of them really fit their needs and are going to result in change in the classroom or change in their practice. So I have really found it to be that balance. And, that's kind of on the lower end when we're doing the sessions and the action planning pieces, but that same balance is necessary at a systems level as well. So to just, as a district say, hey, all schools kind of run with it, do your thing and then report back. I have not found great success there. Instead, it's more of a similar approach to what I just described, where, hey, we want you to think about how to personalize this learning a little bit more. Here are some of the different options, but if none of these work for you, then come talk to us, and we're certainly willing to work with that. So I think that balance is important, not just at a facilitator level, session to session, but also at a district and systems level as well.
Yeah, for sure. We are already nearing the end, even though we started late, but we have another few minutes. And I wanted to know, because I know that you do post the books that you're reading, and I think it's always valuable to hear from our guests what it is they're reading, because there's always a range, right? It's not always just an education. So do you have some top reads of the year so far that you would recommend?
Certainly. So right now on my reading list, I tend to do kind of two at the same time. So I am listening to Simon Sinek's Start With Why again, because I had read it previously and I just needed to kind of reground myself in some of those concepts. And then I actually just started reading a recommendation from Jill Thompson, Atomic Habits. So that's what's on my Kindle right now. But probably one of my top reads from this year that I keep sharing with everyone was Priya Parker's The Art of Gathering. She talks about all of the different concepts that bring us together most effectively, whether that gathering is a 6-person dinner party or a 10,000-person conference. But I've been incorporating a lot of those ideas as I think about professional learning facilitation. And that's informing a lot of the work that I'm piecing together now.
That's awesome. Sorry, I'm just typing these in so I can remember to post them.
I can send them to you too.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you. And Umair, did you have anything else that you wanted to add? I know that you're not feeling well, and I do have another question if you don't mind. But if you have one,
you may
go
ask.
ahead. Okay. So just to kind of sort of wrap things up, you talked a lot about some of the work that you do in schools and with teachers and some pieces from the book. But what are your favorite pieces in particular when you go into a school or a district, whether it's new or people you've worked with before? What are your favorite parts of that work?
So I guess it's kind of the beginning and the end, which is funny to say, but I love sitting down with school and district leaders at the very beginning, where they might have some needs assessment data in hand. They've got, their student achievement and growth data. They have some observation and evaluation data, and we just kind of lay it out on the table and try and figure out, okay, what are the pieces based on this information that still make sense to do in a more traditional one-size model, even if we're personalizing within the session itself. But at the end of the day, all of the teachers in our system still need these content pieces. And then where are we going to kind of chunk out and say, here are the different elements that our teachers clearly need and are interested in, where we're going to personalize even further. So that starting at the game plan and making it all, kind of work and laying those ground plans is probably, one of the most exciting pieces of the work for me. And then the other part would be the end, when, some of that learning starts to come full circle, and I can walk through those sessions or get feedback from teachers, and they're like, oh, finally, this is what we've been waiting for. Or to see some of the different strategies that were facilitated in their sessions then come to life in the classroom is where the magic really happens for me.
Yeah, that's really awesome. And I'm sure you see a lot of and hear a lot of feedback, once you've gone through a cycle and you're hearing those pieces. It must be like a proud mama moment.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, that's already our time with you, which is so crazy. It always goes so fast. So I want to thank you very much, Allie, for spending your Sunday morning with us. I know you are in a big move right now, so we really appreciate having you on the show today. I hope to see you at L2L, I think.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I'll be a featured speaker at L2L, and we've got a book signing lined up, so I'm excited to be there.
Awesome. All right. Thanks very much, Allie.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, and we will be staying in touch with you. For the viewers who are with us and who will be seeing this, who will be watching this show later, I would like to tell them that we have a YouTube channel as well, and this show will be available on YouTube channel. Do subscribe to our channel. Ali, do share the link with your colleagues, with your friends, with the community. And we are finding wonderful people, more people to be with us on the show. So if you find another good educator, do let us know, and we will bring the guy on the show.
You sure will.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
You too.